Welcome back, Greenhouse Science. Today we are going to talk about plant structure and plant function, or really start to talk about it. A lot of the rest of the class will be about specific plant structures and functions and how they do. In case you didn't know, this is a plant. So plants have cells, a lot like animal cells or human cells. They do have some unique structures that I have that we kind of talked about earlier, but they include this central vacuole here. Excuse me, wrong way. There we go. Central vacuole there. Uh, they have plastids and they have a cell wall. There's three basic types or configurations of plant cells, and these can then specialize into different types of tissues and structures. They are parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma are our three types. Parenchyma, these are loosely packed cells. They're cube-shaped, roughly cube-shaped or elongated. They have a really large central vacuole. They have thin, flexible cell walls. And because of this, they're in parts of metabolic processes, things like photosynthesis, things like storage of water and minerals and nutrients, and they help repair damaged tissues. They're made up, they make up the bulk of non-woody plants and the fleshy parts of woody plants. The next type of cell are collenchyma. These are thicker than your parenchyma cells. They're more regular in shape. They have a thicker cell wall up here, and this is because they're helping to provide support for the plant. So they usually group in strands, and these strands are usually running straight up and down, and they're usually helpful for supporting a plant while it's still growing. So they're a little bit flexible, but not super flexible. So they have some give, but not a lot. Because sclerenchyma, these guys here, these are your thick, more rigid cell walls. They're more even. They more look like they are the really strong supporters and help to strengthen the plant in areas where you're not growing anymore. So growth has stopped. And these guys are getting very dense to help support that plant. Usually these guys are dead at maturity. They provide a good frame for the plant, and we find them in structures like shells and nuts and bark, all those parts of the plant that are really tough. Plant tissue systems. Like in animals, cells that work together form a tissue. In plants, we have three kind of basic tissue arrangements. We have dermal tissue, ground system, and vascular system. We further then break these down into three major plant organs, which are roots, stems, and leaves. And all of these organs, roots, stems, and leaves, have all of these different tissues. They have dermal system, ground system, and vascular system. How these plants use these really determines and depends on their environment and the adaptations that they have specifically suited for that environment. So the dermal tissue system, this forms the outside covering of plants. In a young plant, it's an epidermis, which is the outer layer of parenchyma cells. They also can make this structure called the cuticle, which, let me here real quick. Up here, you have the cuticle. Um, this cuticle is a waxy layer that prevents water loss out of there, protects it extra, but keeps water inside of the plant so it's not dehydrating. We also get these hairs on the outside of epidermal plants that help us to increase water absorption, particularly in the roots of plants. And then in woody plants, the epidermis gets replaced later by dead cork cells. The ground tissue system. This is the dermal tissue is on the outside. The ground tissue system is in the middle here. This is as all different types of plant cells inside of this space here. Its main job is for storage, for metabolism, and for support of the plant. Inside of here, your most commonly found cells are parenchyma, because those are the ones that are doing metabolism and storage. You also have some collenchyma in here for support. Your non-woody roots, stems, and leaves are all made up of primarily ground tissue with that epidermis on the outside. Some more adaptations of the ground tissue system here. This is a cactus stem here. You can see that it has a ton, all of this like fleshy bit in the middle here is parenchyma cells that help it to store water in very dry environments. And most of your succulent plants have that. Your non-woody plants have to be flexible enough to survive winds. They'll have larger amounts of collenchyma. In non-windy areas, you'll have less of that collenchyma. Sclerenchyma in this guy here, it gives you extra structure, helps you make spines, and helps you coat seeds. So things that you need to protect the plant and things that you need to protect the seed there. The vascular tissue system is inside. So if you're going from the outside, it's epidermal system, the epidermis system, the ground system, and then inside is the vascular tissue system in the very center of the plant. And this is transporting materials and support of the plant. Vascular tissue itself is both xylem and phloem in plants. Xylem takes water and minerals from the roots and pushes it upward in the plants, and then it also provides a lot of support. Phloem, on the other hand, not only it takes the products of photosynthesis, the organic compounds, and moves them throughout the plant, up, down, sideways, left, right. Unlike xylem, phloem is very much alive and continues to grow and elongate and reproduce. We're going to talk about angiosperm vascular systems. In angiosperms and vascular systems, we have xylem and phloem. Xylem has two major components in angiosperms. It has tracheids and vessel elements. Tracheids are a long, thin-walled sclerenchyma cell that has tapering ends at either end. As water moves from one tracheid to the other, they move through pits that are porous areas of the cell wall in those ends. And so it is able to move from one direction up, kind of like a straw. Vessel elements are bigger sclerenchyma cells than your tracheids, and they either will have large holes at the top and bottom, or they won't have any walls at all at the top and bottom. And they're stacked on top of each other. They're the elements, and they're stacked on top of each other to form vessels, and the fluid will travel through those holes or up and down through that tube. Vessel elements are much bigger than tracheids. Parenchyma and phloem. Conducting parenchyma cells are called sieve tube members. Once again, they're like the elements. There's a whole bunch of them together that make up the main component, the main chunk. They're tacked on, the chunk that they make up is called sieve tube. So a whole bunch of sieve tube members together makes a sieve tube. Compounds will move through one cell end to one cell end through things called sieve plates. And you can see a picture of both what they look like up here and then what they look like kind of microscopically up there. Each sieve tube member lies next to a companion cell, and these help to keep them healthy, help assist in the transport, and make sure that fluids are moving from the bottom to the top there, or excuse me, all over the plant, because in phloem, remember, we're not just going top to bottom, we're also going top down, we're going sideways, all kinds of ways with phloem. Fibers in phloem. Phloem also usually contains sclerenchyma, or these harder cells called fibers. Some commercially important fibers are things like hemp, flax, and jute. And this is jute here, which is commonly used in basket weaving. Well, depending on where you live in the world, depends on what vascular tissue you might have. Xylem forms the wood of trees, allowing them to grow tall and to allow them to access water and minerals that are really deep underground. Versus in aquatic plants like duckweed, they don't need xylem because the water is giving them support, and they don't need to transport water big distances. They're in water all the time. When plants grow, they grow through areas called meristems. These are regions of undifferentiated cells that are constantly dividing that help the plant to grow. Apical meristems are making the plant grow taller or deeper, longer in length, usually in the stems and roots. And lateral meristems are ones that go wider, and they allow you to get wider roots, wider trunks for more stability and support. Two types of lateral meristems. You have the vascular cambium, which is located between the xylem and phloem and provides additional vascular support there. There's your xylem. Oops, excuse me, let me change that real quick there. Here's your xylem, and there's your phloem. So in between xylem and phloem is the vascular cambium. It produces more vascular tissue, more xylem and phloem, and then outside of the phloem is the cork cambium, which replaces the epidermis in woody stems and in woody roots. And these cells are dead and provide protection and prevent additional water loss. So that's why as you watch a tree get bigger, its big bark gets bigger. When plants get longer, either growing up or growing down, this is called primary growth by apical meristems. When they're getting wider, that's called secondary growth and is produced by lateral meristems.